Okay, hello everyone and welcome to another tactical analysis video. It's been a while, to say the least, since the last one. And you're probably looking at the screen right now and thinking, hold on a second, Joe Gomez, Fabian Delph, Joel Matip, they didn't play for Liverpool against Man City this week. And that's because, I just want to say, if you enjoy this video or if you want some maybe interesting pre-context with regards to the previous 4-3 win that Liverpool had against Man City, and if you think it might be interesting to see a tactical analysis of how both teams fought each other back a few months ago in the Premier League, and then come on to then re-watch this video and see kind of how both teams change their playstyle. If that's something you think might be interesting for you, the link for this previous tactical analysis will be in the description below. If you're not interested in what happened in the past and you're more fussed about a tactical analysis of what happened in the Champions League game, then yeah, let's do it. So, to kick things off with the formations and systems, Liverpool started off with their usual 4-3-3, with a strong emphasis on pressing from the front where possible, but not to the same kind of gegenpressing extent that we've seen them go to a lot of the time under Jurgen Klopp's management and in the Premier League. This is mainly obviously due to Man City's ability, unlike how Liverpool may sacrifice defensive stability to keep Mane or Mohamed Salah forward off the ball. There was a strong emphasis on them tracking back in this game, protecting their fullback against the likes of Leroy Sané, quite similar to what we saw with their off-the-ball movement in their 4-3 victory over Man City in the Premier League earlier in the season. The trio of the three central midfielders off the ball dropped deep, and most importantly remained both tight and compact to each other. They had less expression to go rogue further up the pitch when off the ball and try and close down the opposition in their own half, and this is really why I emphasised earlier that Liverpool did not press with the same heavy metal football intensity that Jurgen Klopp and his teams have over time become known for. We'll discuss why Klopp had to make these specific alterations to the approach he took earlier in the season against City and why it worked to absolute perfection. On the ball, Liverpool looked to counter-attack quickly, to no surprise, with 1-2 give-and-go passes down the wings, forming triangles with the fullbacks Salah or Mane and a central midfielder as a pivot. Where possible, Oxlade-Chamberlain would bomb further forward, while as a result Henderson and Milner both ensured they provided defensive stability. This was a slight but effective and intelligent change from how Liverpool would usually play, where normally you'd have two of the three central midfielders opting to bomb forward, where Henderson would usually then be the lone protection, or sometimes Emre Can. Minor, but against a team like Man City can honestly make a huge difference tactically. As for Man City, they look to start with a 4-3-3/4-2-3-1-esque formation on paper, with Gabriel Jesus as the lone striker and Sané as a winger/inside forward out on the left-hand side. The main surprise was the inclusion of Gundogan over Raheem Sterling out on the right-hand side. The assumption of most also seeing Laporte starting at left-back, who is naturally a centre-back, over the more athletic options of Danilo or even perhaps Fabian Delph, who has received a lot of plaudits this season for his ability to play as an inverted fullback, was that off the ball, Man City's formation would really transform into more of a 3-1-4-2-esque formation, whereas Gundogan would come central to meet De Bruyne pushing forward and Silva to try and play make in the half spaces. Walker would then transform, bomb forward out wide as a winger to provide pace and width against Robertson, instead of what Sterling would usually offer in a slightly further forward role. Centrally, City were geared around creating plenty of passing options utilising Gundogan's movement to try and deal with Liverpool's 3 central players. This would then give them a numerical advantage, utilising Fernandinho, De Bruyne, Gundogan and Silva as kind of 4 central playmaking players to always ensure they had that extra man up against the 3 of Henderson, Oxlade-Chamberlain and Milner. Unfortunately for them, that didn't quite go according to plan. On the ball, City started well in terms of keeping possession, which was a false sense of confidence. This is something they struggled with against Liverpool in the Premier League due to the rougher and varied gegenpressing we saw occur in that fixture from especially the front 3. Reasons as to why this aspect improved for Man City as opposed to the Premier League tie wasn't just because Liverpool's midfield looked to stand off more than they did in the Premier League fixture and looked to lure Man City out of their own half a bit more, but also because De Bruyne was also playing a lot deeper than how we've usually seen him play for Man City so far this season. So him being closer to the defence, to the back 4, obviously made playing out the back and retaining possession within their own half ever so slightly easier for Man City. Starting with what was in Guardiola's mind, having lost earlier in the season to Liverpool, Guardiola quite obviously decided to change his approach from the first time round and use Laporte out on the left as a player who rarely ventured forward to try and match Liverpool's front 3, who should have been looking to constantly pressure from the front and make runs in behind City's high line. The idea wasn't only to use the extra player at the back for better ball retention, but also to provide further defensive insurance, which they perhaps neglected at times during their 4-3 loss earlier on in the Premier League. By playing De Bruyne deeper, he'd get on the ball a lot more. Simultaneously, the assumption was if Liverpool opted to kind of maintain a kind of very tight man-marking orientated defensive style of play centrally like we saw them do in the Premier League, as well as the more intense gegenpressing approach that we saw in that first fixture. By playing De Bruyne deeper, Guardiola would simultaneously lure Chamberlain out of position because he tried to close him down more, but to also, as a result, create more central space for the playmakers, in this case in the form of Silva and Gundogan, to operate within. Going forwards for City, once the emphasis is on the playmakers within the final third, the cue is obviously then on for Kyle Walker to overlap, provide width and make up for a lack of Sterling, who could have really provided that and very often this season has provided exactly that for Man City out wide. It should be clear right now how this approach differs slightly to City's usual approach this season, where both Sané and Sterling would sit wider to stretch opposition defences and create room for Silva and De Bruyne to then transition into the half spaces from centrally by using passes or 1-2s with the wide men. And of course, if you're not too familiar with regards to what the half spaces are, you obviously have the right flank, the left flank, the central area of the park, and the yellow areas on the pitch on the screen right now are essentially what you'd consider the half spaces, just in case anyone watching this isn't quite sure what we mean when we talk about half spaces, which are a very important aspect to how Man City have been playing this season. But this isn't really a video about tactical fundamentals or about how City have been playing all season. But if you are interested in seeing a tactical analysis of Guardiola's City or an analysis of how they played earlier on in the season, like I said, when they lost 4-3 to Liverpool, you can find the videos either in the description below or on my channel, where since you're there, you should totally hit the subscribe button as well. So, while Pep aimed to overflood the central areas with playmakers, this meant that Liverpool could afford to defend deeper and narrower due to obviously less wider players, essentially forming an offensive threat for Man City, with both Salah and Mane, of course, tracking back and protecting their fullback. But the key element for Liverpool wasn't going forwards, but it was with how they defended. They maintained their compactness and intelligent pressing within their own half of the pitch after luring in the blue players. Instead of opting to win the ball high up the pitch, like they may have done in the like they did do in the Premier League fixture, instead they sat back and told Man City, come on then, attack as if you can. Good luck getting past our wall of 5 in midfield, let alone our narrow and deep back 4. And if you think you're going to get your playmakers to be effective in the half spaces, then you must be joking. And that is essentially what happened. Mane and Salah were ridiculously tight to Chamberlain and Milner, who in return were very tight to Jordan Henderson as well, creating this kind of narrow, hard to break down, tight wall in midfield of 5 in front of a deeper back 4. Liverpool ended up completely outnumbering the City players in the areas that those particular players they had on the pitch wanted to operate within. You know, these central playmaker style of players like your Gundogans, your De Bruynes, your David Silvas. Quite simply, by playing the way that they did and using that numerical advantage in the middle of the park, Liverpool were blocking off the half spaces that Man City wanted to operate within. As a result, not only significantly reducing City's passing completion ratio, causing them to perform more errors on the ball, but most importantly, also depriving both Sané and Gabriel Jesus of opportunities on the ball. In the scenario where Sané and Walker got the ball wide, this off-the-ball shape still allowed defensive stability, particularly down the City right-hand side. When Walker would get outnumbered 2 versus 1 down his right flank, he'd find himself defending both against Robertson and Mane, and then the extra man who's Gundogan to his left would be picked up by Oxlade-Chamberlain. Or on the other side, in the scenario where Alexander-Arnold would be defending against Leroy Sané, because Salah was also tracking back, it would allow him to then either track David Silva, or because of the tight compact 3 central players also being available, choking the half spaces. If Salah would then help Alexander-Arnold and close down Sané, Milner would then be able to pick up Silva, who we saw at times would try to play 1-2s with Sané to try and break past the Liverpool defensive line. And whilst it seemed somewhat effective early on, within the first 10 minutes, really seemed to phase out once Liverpool got their defending boots on. So in general, these all-important half spaces, the central areas that Man City came into the game wanting to exploit, well, Liverpool had a plan for them, and it didn't really matter where City went, unless it was getting the ball wide, switching the ball direct, which we saw them try to do from time to time. They were outnumbered everywhere. And this is really why I said it worked to absolute perfection earlier on, and why the toned-down pressing was an ingenious tweak from Klopp by being less heavy metal. It doesn't mean they didn't close down with intensity. They did. They just timed it well and basically waited for Man City to come to them and capitalise on the space that was left behind for them, rather than go wanting to close them down in their own half and then leave the rest of their team exposed. By luring Man City into their own half, something they didn't necessarily do again when they played early on in the Premier League when they beat them, where we saw them employ their usual more aggressive pressing from the front, it also in return created tons of space for Liverpool to counter-attack into, as we saw from Salah's first goal, even if it was marginally offside. The reliance on Walker to provide width down the City right-hand side was also food for Sadio Mane and Robertson on the counter-attack due to the space that will be vacated. And let's be honest, Vincent Kompany isn't exactly as fast as he used to be. And while Laporte may have tried, and let's be honest, failed despite an average performance all round from the Spaniard to keep Salah quiet on the other side, the opportunity to exploit for him was still there. Klopp knew Guardiola was going to try and address what went wrong last time, but unfortunately the German was one step ahead of him this time, and while Liverpool didn't necessarily have any specific plan offensively, bar than aiming to get Salah on the ball as much as possible, whilst also taking advantage of Laporte's lack of natural fullback ability, it was their defensive plan to stop their opponents which really made the difference. They stopped City being able to play their own game that they came to the game wanting to play. Klopp also knew that if they managed to stop City at their own game, the rest was always going to feed into Liverpool's natural ability, which is to hit teams on the counter-attack. Once they had the ball, they were right at home. After all, what was more impressive? Their 4-3 win, where they were kind of fortunate to win and still allowed City to score 3 goals, or this 3-0 win with a clean sheet? And I totally understand that some of Liverpool's goals were fortunate, but I think as a whole, it was a much better performance all round from them, especially defensively they looked a lot more solid. 3-0 probably flattered Liverpool in the end, and they were lucky that Salah was deemed onside for the first, for example, as well as the fact that on another day, Walker would have probably cleared Firmino's saved shot, which then obviously was parried in by Salah for that first goal. But at the end of the day, one team defended well and took their chances, while the other one in blue didn't. Sane could have easily played Silva through to his left in the 13th minute and equalised at 1-1, and instead opted to shoot, and really should have found the back of the net in the 51st minute when volleying a cross goal from a cross, for example. Second half, Guardiola brought on Sterling to widen the pitch and feed on switch balls from the likes of De Bruyne, Fernandinho as triggers for others to start making runs between the lines that were now available, while City started looking more like their former selves. They still failed to score and failed to grab at least a single away goal, though unfortunately for them. And obviously the reason why the lines became available once Sterling came on was by widening the pitch, Liverpool's fullbacks were forced further out of their defensive line, and therefore space began opening up for City. But despite hanging on, I think Klopp timed his substitutions really well, bringing on Wijnaldum as fresh legs centrally after moving Chamberlain out wide earlier on in the game, which also in a way emphasises Chamberlain's versatility and why he's been such a great bang-for-buck signing for Liverpool this season. And of course he brought on Moreno late on to provide extra defensive quality down the left-hand side, because he can obviously, he's a full-back or a wing-back, but can also play on the wing. Credit as well to Bobby Firmino, who tracked back plenty as well when Liverpool had the lead. It's worth mentioning that within the second half, due to Liverpool becoming further stretched, they employed more of a man-marking regime centrally to then pick up the playmakers, similar to what we saw them do the first time round when they played in the Premier League and won 4-3. I discussed this in that tactical analysis of the game, and again the link is in the description. As for Pep, well, he could have made 3 substitutions. He was 3-0 down, and then his only substitution was Sterling. Make of that what you will. Pep tried to come into the match with a unique game plan, wanting to outnumber Klopp centrally, kind of similar to what he did when he used Sterling as a false 9 against Man United. And while Klopp has been accused heavily this season of not changing his heavy metal gegenpressing football to be more cautious against certain particular teams in the Premier League, which as a result has led to poor defensive displays by his team, he certainly gave us a phenomenal defensive display for this match. I've tried to keep this video nice and short, even though knowing my luck it's probably going to end up being 20 minutes long, but I also want to release a quick analysis video of the Real Madrid vs Juventus match this weekend, and if you've watched my videos before you'll know if I don't end it here, I'll keep on discussing this game until tomorrow. Overall, I think Trent Alexander-Arnold played magnificently up against one of the best attacking wingers in the world in Leroy Sané, and deserves tons of credit for his performance, particularly on a night where he was City's main offensive spark, obviously Sané, and could have made the difference with even a single away goal taking Liverpool back to the Etihad Stadium. Even though Salah and Chamberlain made his life much easier by staying tight to Silva and co within that area, again Liverpool defended brilliantly, and the work rate from the front players to come back and help the defensive players was really key. I also think the decision to start Laporte over someone like maybe a more athletic Danilo, who on his right foot from the left-hand side could have maybe been utilised to drive central and create more havoc, more room for Silva and co to drift out wide. To maybe, occupy someone like a Milner making a late run central to allow Silva that slight amount of room to then give Van Dijk problems, or on the other side De Bruyne making late runs past Chamberlain towards Lovren. And the truth is that those kind of wide areas were there to be exploited, in particular in the first half, and Guardiola did notice that, and the change of tactical approach from Man City in the second half emphasised that. Laporte should have been tighter to Salah for the third goal. I mean, it was criminal really the way he kind of backed off. His position was really more like a centre-back, like he was the left-sided centre-back of a pairing of two. And he just kept parrying back and deeper into more of a centre-back position, and that easily allowed Salah to cut in on his favoured left foot, which, like I said, is criminal. There were also a few Liverpool crossing opportunities from down the right-hand side before and after, with Alexander-Arnold also looking to overlap quite conservatively, but you know, you could tell that there were problems being created by Liverpool down that side where Mohamed Salah was, and that Laporte was struggling to deal with it. And really, in the end, it was only a matter of time until they were made to pay the price. And unfortunately, when they were made to pay the price, they were already 2-0 down, and it just added insult to injury for Man City. So, in conclusion, I never thought I'd be sat here saying this, but what won Liverpool the game was essentially their ability to put behind them the past and this kind of free-flowing attacking team they've been known for, that don't really care about the defensive side of the game, and credit where it's due to Jurgen Klopp. The same way Guardiola came away from that initial 4-3 in the Premier League and said, right, this is what we need to change. Jurgen Klopp anticipated some of the changes that Guardiola was going to bring to play. Credit where it's due to all the Liverpool players, the way they defended, compact, deep. I do feel like Guardiola should have maybe switched things around a little bit earlier, looked to use the wide areas a little bit more, because it was clear that Sané was getting opportunities through that side of the pitch, and it was clear as well that centrally, you know, De Bruyne was constantly dropping deep to try and pick up the ball, but then when he had the ball, he'd struggle to play a pass forwards because there was no players in the half spaces, no players without a red shirt around them to comfortably give the ball to and look to really, you know, move up the field with. And that is really why, as soon as Sterling came on, it wasn't really Sterling's own ability, being a fantastic player and whatnot, that changed the game. It was just that ability to stretch the Liverpool defence that little bit more. It was just unfortunate that not only did they not get an away goal, but that they were already 3-0 down by the time that the changes were made. And that was it, really. Both teams, I think, as a whole, it was a pretty even match. But in the end, Liverpool defended deep, and they knew that they weren't going to have too many chances going forwards. And I think if you look at the stats in the end, while Man City had 11 shots on goal versus Liverpool's 9, Man City, for the first time this season, failed to register a single shot on target, whilst even though Liverpool only had 34% of possession, while Liverpool, obviously, a lot of the time during the game, were on the back foot because they didn't see that much of the ball and they were defending really compact, really narrow and really deep. You have to appreciate how well they were able to transition as soon as they forced Man City into an error. How players like Mane and Salah and Firmino were able to quickly transition from deep in their own half, going forwards to create the chances that they did, to create the goals that they did, and still somehow generate 5 shots on target. And as we know, the old saying says, quality over quantity, and while Man City may have had a higher quantity of shots as a whole, in the end, it was Liverpool's quality of defending that probably helped with a lot of them shots going off target, and their quality going forward that without a shadow of a doubt helped them turn defence into attack and get 5 shots on target, as well as a hint of good fortune, I think. But do you think Man City will be able to bring it back at the Etihad in the second leg? Obviously, they're going to have to score a heck of a load of goals, but let me know what you think, and hopefully you enjoyed this tactical analysis. Hopefully it's not as long as some of the previous ones. And again, sometimes people look at games like this and think that, you know, rocket science must surround it, and in this case, I think that isn't the case at all. We had one team that defended and counter-attacked magnificently and another team that didn't take their chances. So if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're one of my Football Manager series viewers and you're wondering why I haven't uploaded a Football Manager video in a while, it's because obviously Champions League has been on and I've been working on these tactical analysis videos. And if you are a subscriber mainly for my tactical analysis videos, hopefully you enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, hit the like button if you haven't already, and thanks for watching.